it almost seems every time there's a new design trick or ability, whether it be in builders or whatever, people just latch onto it like it's the cool new thing. But if somebody has to stop and think for a minute on like, how do I actually navigate this website or find the thing I'm looking for? Like, does it matter how cool your design was if you now made it unusable for your users, right? That's just counterintuitive. Welcome back to Local SEO Tactics, where we bring you tips and tricks to get found online. I'm your host, Jesse Dolan, here with Taylor Horn. First time on the show. Taylor, how you doing?
Doing good.
Taylor, just so everybody knows, is part of our team here at Intrix and is our brand marketing manager, which means, Taylor, you're pretty much in charge of what all the graphic design, logos, website, branding packages, pretty much helping all of our clients present their brand properly, right? The best foot forward.
Yes.
Been doing this professionally for over 7 years. You've got a passion for this. You're a rock star on it. If anybody goes, check out some of our Google reviews, Facebook reviews. I know you're mentioned or these services are mentioned. You're an absolute rock star on our team. And we've been talking about getting you on the podcast here and the YouTube show to talk about web branding, that type of thing. Even though it's not a direct, SEO ranking factor, here we are, Local SEO Tactics, right? But you really can't talk about SEO and local SEO websites without all the things that you bring to the table, Taylor. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to have you on to introduce you to everybody listening and watching, but also to dive into this topic for everybody, because we haven't really talked about these types of things on the show yet. And I know this stuff is going to help a lot of people out. So did I miss anything in your quick bio and intro there, Taylor, that we should highlight for everybody?
No, I think you covered it. Just a huge branding nerd. I consider myself a web designer first and then an SEO second. So I'm definitely excited to bring the two together in this podcast episode. So
what we're going to be talking about here today is roughly how current trends, right? 2023 trends in web design can adversely affect your SEO and your user experience, right? There's too much of a good thing. So we're going to go through, Taylor has a bullet point list here of several things that she sees all the time where we want to avoid excess, right? Or doing these things to a point where they cause you some problems. So let's dig in, Taylor. What do you want to talk about for the first thing?
Sure. Yeah. And I'd like to also start by saying I'm definitely not trying to, dog any design or kind of stop any innovation in the design realm. I'm just here to speak on behalf of a designer who works in SEO now and kind of be that guide in your SEO for your website design. So starting off, I definitely want to bring one of the more common things that you see. It's pretty consistently used now, and it has been for the past couple years, and it's kind of that big hero image. So a big hero image or video when you first go to a website. Sometimes if I go to a website that doesn't have one, I'm like, ooh, this is weird. But it's very much an eye-catching way to kind of grab your visitor's attention. Very visually appealing, especially if it's, high quality, it's, relevant to your business. However, from the SEO side of it, if it's slow loading, if it's pixelated, if it's causing any sort of bog down of your site load, it can be a hindrance on your SEO. So I know I've gotten in trouble with slow loading times by having a big video or big image on that first initial load screen. So if you are going to be using a large image or video right there, or anywhere on your site for that matter, just having compression plugin like Imagify or Short Pixel. And then you can also use like a browser compression tool like Tiny PNG. And it basically just shrinks the size of the video or photo without losing quality. Sometimes it might lose a little quality, but if it's not loading, Google has said like many times that page speed is such a huge factor in your rank. So having a fast loading page is super, super important. It's kind of why I wanted to start with this first one, just because it's such a huge, SEO factor is that page speed in sites. So,
and I think in addition to SEO, you mentioned earlier, just like the loading speed too. which, Googlebot, right? This is important for ranking, but also if, as a human being, if you visit a website and you're just like, not exactly like line by line seeing it paint that image, but if it's trying to load this big old image, sometimes people aren't going to wait 3 or 4 seconds for
Right.
that, right? You
Exactly.
just don't want that experience, period. I'm wondering, so you gave people some tips on some good plugins and ways. So if you have an extra large image or whatever, and you just have to use it, these tools can help. Are there things people can do? I'm a little bit antiquated on my photoshopping here, right? Especially as you're part of the team doing all this for our clients. But isn't there something where like the composition of that image, right? If it's tons of colors, right, it's taking a lot more pixels, a lot larger size. Maybe if you need a big old high quality image that you can't compress, try some different images and see which ones load faster too as an option. But um,
Yeah.
so you're definitely saying for people like don't skip a big hero image, right? And still be very visual, but you have to pay attention to how this is loading. Really, at the end of the day, is the big part.
Absolutely. Right.
Okay.
And another huge thing is having, your call to action above the fold. This is something, as far as conversions, converting leads, if it's just a giant image and there's not a lot of context behind it, having a call to action somewhere, whether it be on top or right next to, can kind of help that user journey. If they're like, waiting for something to load, they can see, okay, this is your anthem video for your business. So, keeping that in mind too. And of course, alt text. Make sure you got your alt text on there.
For your images, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious when you say on top, the text on top, are you talking like actually overlaying the image or above it?
Definitely above it. Don't try to paste like a text on an image. We definitely want the heading there, right there in a text box or however you want to do it, but not in a photo necessarily, but, text over your image.
Okay. So if just so everybody's clear, if you're going to load that image in, you don't want in Photoshop or whatever your editor is, you don't want to be adding text in that and then having your text in the image. You want the text on the web builder as something that can be then read right by Google and things like that. So that's awesome. And for sure, this is a huge impact for people. And I'm glad you started here, number one, because yeah, it's going to slow your pages down. It's the first thing you see when you load a page. Usually we're talking about the home page here. So yeah, great one to start with. Um, what do you have for the next thing to watch out for?
Right. And kind of starting from the top and working down. Another huge one that I've been seeing a lot, one of the newer trends, I would say, is having a non traditional navigation. So, kind of moving away from the conventional, logo on the left, menu pages on the right. I think a lot of designers are getting bored with it. So, they're trying out these new tactics, whether it just be like icons as menu items or even just a little hamburger menu, whether you're on desktop or mobile, slide out menus, menu on the right or the left. And it's really cool and I love the innovation, but I do sometimes wonder if it could be, impacting your visitor. This is definitely one to take into account, like your audience, like who's coming to this page. Will they innately know to click on this hamburger menu or do they need kind of those navigation items listed out? And in that same vein, staying away from technical jargon or like complex terms, you definitely want it to be pretty straight up front. Like, this is our about page, this is the contact page. You want it easily accessible because if people can't find what they're looking for on your site, they're going to leave. And your bounce rate's going to just go through the roof if, people aren't able to navigate your site correctly.
I've been working in SEO marketing websites basically since 2000. And this is an interesting topic for me because I feel like this is one of those what's old is new again. You see this going in cycles every number of years where we get these menus that are just crazy complex. And it almost seems every time there's a new design trick or ability, whether it be in builders or whatever, people just latch onto it like it's the cool new thing. But it's always for me so tricky. Actually, we were just talking about this book, Don't Make Me Think. And for me, that's what always resonates is those things are cool and all, but if somebody has to stop and think for a minute on like, how do I actually navigate this website or find the thing I'm looking for? Like, does it matter how cool your design was if you now made it unusable for your users, right? That's counterintuitive. So I really like this topic too. And um, I don't know, regular text menus load super quick, right? If your menu is based on icons and widgets and all these other things, from the web design and build standpoint, I have to imagine that's a lot more code, assets, things like that, right? Weight you're putting in for these things versus a traditional menu. And but that aside, the whole making somebody think in the user experience, I think is pretty critical. And Taylor, we forgot to mention everybody, let them know too, whoever's listening right now, catching us on the podcast, if you want to see examples of these as we're going through, Taylor's showing screens, maybe injecting some screenshots in post production here. But check us out on our YouTube channel, Local SEO Tactics, and you can see what we're talking about here as well with some examples. As we're going along, we're not going to reference them or kind of do a tutorial for everybody who is listening. You still be able to listen just fine. But yeah, if you want to see some examples of what we're talking here, check it out on YouTube as well. And if you can't navigate to that, just go to localseotactics.com, find this episode, and there'll be a link to the YouTube video right within that as well. But yeah, complex and non-intuitive navigation. We always say, Taylor, and I think I've mentioned this before on the show. If everybody doesn't know, Intrix, the name of our agency and firm that we work at, it's Swedish, loosely based on Swedish, for the word impression. And we chose that name for the company because, yeah, you want to get ranked in SEO to be found, but also what's extremely important is that first impression, clients and prospects have of your website. And for me, this one you have right here, Taylor, the complex, non-intuitive navigation. I just get stymied. Like, how could you spend all this money maybe getting ranked or investing into your website and then just make it hard for people to use? We think it's cool and innovative, to your point, right? But do some A/B testing. Grab some people who aren't familiar with your business. If you have a website like Taylor's talking and it's cool widgets and gadgets to navigate, tell somebody, hey, go find blank function on my website. And if they can't do it real quick, maybe you want to rethink how cool your website looks. Maybe you got to go more traditional. So those are the first two. What's the next one on the list, Taylor?
Yeah, so in that kind of same kind of new on the scene 2023, we're seeing a lot more movement and animations. And this could be, introduction animations to when you first go to a site, to even like you can hover over an element on the site and it's, interactive kind of animation. And in that same topic, I will kind of loop in like pop-ups even, which can be really cool, and it can be your, sign up for our newsletter. But in that same kind of vein, I would definitely be careful if you are using any sort of animation or pop-up. It can be a hindrance on your site. It can slow down your site, and it can disrupt your users' journey. And it can look a little spammy, as a matter of fact. Like, I think you might lose a little cred or lose a little bit of trustworthiness if you go to a website and it's just like, look here, and I definitely don't want to discredit, there are some benefits to having, a sale pop-up or something. Just make sure there's like a close intention readily available for your user so they're not getting stuck. And, make sure it looks okay on mobile as well, because I think a lot of animations, while they might look cool on desktop, as soon as you get to mobile, it might not be the same experience. So people might get frustrated, they might leave your site, and if Google detects those bouncing people, they might, demote your page a little bit. So definitely beware of any sort of animation, any sort of pop-up, and again, it's definitely heavily reliant on your audience and who's coming to your site.
And I think if you're going to do that stuff, it has to help further your message, right? And it can't just be cool for the sake of being cool. And I really like what you said to everybody there, Taylor, about checking out on mobile, basically. We've mentioned that before, for SEO and other design related things. We design on desktop, right? Or laptop, big screens, so to speak. And if owners, marketing managers, everybody listen and watch, and if you're having your meeting about redesigning your website and looking at these cool animations like Taylor's talking about, I bet you all this is always happening on these large screens, right? How does that translate to mobile, which is probably where the majority of your prospects and clients are engaging with you is on that mobile. So Taylor is making a great point here. Definitely check those things out on mobile and see if they translate well, or if If they don't even show up or act as planned, might want to just ditch them altogether, right? That being said, Taylor, I know you do incorporate transitions, animation, and
Oh,
a
I
lot of
do.
design. So all these things have a place. It's just
Yeah.
you don't want to overdo it.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely not overdoing it, making sure there's not too much movement, and there might even be in your web builder the ability to turn off those animations on specific devices. So keep that in mind. If it's not, translating well on phone, then maybe just disclude the animation overall. But I do think there is a time and a place for it. It can really catch your viewer's eye and kind of enhance your message with kind of these cool, trendy, pop-ups. So love it.
It can look professional and classy when done the right way, and not, like you said, gimmicky and whatnot if you do it wrong. So all right, so
Yeah.
so far we've talked over reliance on like the large hero images and videos top of the page, pitfalls of that. Talking about bad, complex, non-intuitive navigation. Here we're talking about pop-ups, advertisements, animations, things like that. All really good. All things I think that people can maybe gravitate towards when they want a new website, something that looks better. My old art teacher, I remember from high school, he'd be too much was his phrase always, right? When you overdid it. And I think those three things definitely fit in that category. I know we've got a few more on the list here.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next thing to avoid? Hey everyone, just a quick message about our free SEO audit tool on localseotactics.com, and we'll get right back to the show. If you haven't taken advantage of it yet, go on out to localseotactics.com/free SEO audit, or look for the yellow button up in the top right corner, click that, and it's going to take just a couple seconds. You enter in the page that you want to optimize, what you're looking for the audit to score against, enter in that page, enter in the keyword you're looking to get optimized for, and enter in your email address, click the button, and it's going to take you a few seconds, and then it's going to send you off a PDF report via email. It's a great report. It's going to kind of give you an overall score of some vital SEO areas for that page and for your website at large, even though it's auditing this page. That's going to tell you some of the good things that are happening, some of the bad things that are happening too, and give you basically a checklist of some things that you need to shore up and what you can do to improve your SEO for that page, for that keyword that you're auditing. Now you can use this as many times as you want. You can do multiple keywords, multiple pages, multiple keywords on the same page. You can even use this to check against your competitors, right? If you want to do a little reverse engineering, see how they're scoring for a certain keyword, what they may be doing good that you're not, and some things to improve there. So lots of different ways to use it, completely free. Again, go on to localseotactics.com/free SEO audit, or look for the yellow button in the top right corner of the website.
So this is kind of one emerging web trend that gained some popularity, but it's kind of, I haven't seen it too much lately, but it's the dark mode. So instead of black text on white background, it's black background with white text. And this kind of had a resurgence, and, it was very techy. A lot of these like darker themed websites had, this dark background, and we weren't really used to seeing it. And while it can be kind of cool and visually striking, kind of this modern aesthetic, it's important to consider that, impact of SEO, that user experience. It could be hard to read. It could be a little straining on the eyes. And then there's an accessibility concern. So if you are going to have any sort of dark mode, it might be worth it to look into an accessibility plugin, which would basically be like a toggle. So if somebody doesn't want to view your site with this dark, background, they could switch it with this toggle. There are many WordPress plugins out there, and then keeping that accessibility in mind. So if you are going to have a dark background, make sure the text is bright and has a decent contrast. You know, make sure that people can read it, essentially. Because again, if people can't see your site, if they're having issues reading your content, you risk that bounce rate. You're risking people leaving your site, and and obviously make sure it looks classy. You don't want a dark website that doesn't have that modern-y feel, and kind of the new age looking website.
Right. I think that's a very good one. I've seen a lot of sites like you said, where it's kind of hard to read. Um, I've got like a large monitor. Just again, back to if it's mobile or smaller, I mean, whatever it is, if you're starting off with it, making it maybe a little bit of difficult experience for the average user. Yeah, what's it like for the people even more on the fringe? I think it's a really good one. I think it's a really good one.
Yeah.
What do you got
And
next?
just not as common, but definitely one to keep in mind. And then the next one is kind of another more common one that we've seen a lot lately in the past few years, and it's that parallax scrolling. And kind of taking it to another level, 2023 is like full horizontal scrolling or fixed text, and it's one side of the page, this kind of asymmetrical is scrolling while one side is fixed. So definitely cool, visually stunning in a lot of cases, but again, it's kind of, keep it simple. Don't overuse it. It can confuse or disorient people if you've got parallax on parallax. It can be a challenge for users, sometimes trying to navigate. If there's too many kind of scrolling elements on the site, it might not translate well on mobile devices. This is another one to kind of keep in mind. If it might look good on desktop, maybe not on mobile so much. And then, you want to make sure that your content hierarchy is not affected with this kind of digital flow. So if people have to scroll a lot, it can be kind of annoying, frankly. So, just make sure that the user experience is still smooth with these kind of modern background image scrolling text, things like that.
I think this one is particularly applicable kind of for the everyday Main Street business too, right? If you're, I don't know, if you're a record company or like something that's very visual or pop culture or whatever, I think these things maybe are more down your alley, right? But if you're the local business, the kind of people that are listening right now to this or watching this on YouTube, right? The people we help and the reason this show exists, uh, I got to imagine this is an area where, yeah, you don't need a whole lot of that. I think the parallax stuff looks cool. Again, like all these things that you're bringing up here, you use these all the time in your designs and
Oh, yeah.
recommendations. But as accent, right? Not as, the main function
Right.
that the site revolves around. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Parallax can be really cool, but can really be a little mind-numbingly confusing if you got too
Yes.
much going
And
on there. So
right. And this whole kind of, instead of a website scrolling vertically, it's scrolling
right.
horizontally, which can be cool. But, and then this also kind of brings up, if you do kind of go off the norm, you have this horizontal scrolling site, it might take some custom coding. It might, require a specific plugin or something. Again, can maybe affecting that load time if you're adding all these additional elements to your page. So
Another layer here we haven't really brought up, Taylor, but it's coming to mind as you're saying that. If again you're a business owner, marketing manager listening, the more of this stuff you incorporate into your website, especially if you're paying somebody to do this, the more time there is for cost, for development, for labor, right? For those assets. If it's more complex on the page, it costs more and it took longer to build too, right? So same thing here. If you don't need an excessive amount of these things, hopefully your website cost, if you're designing a new website or redesigning your current site, should be a little bit less as well if you can lay off the excessiveness of these things. That one's really good. We have one more. Before we get to that one last one, Taylor, is there any other thoughts kind of bringing all these other ones together? Or do we want to hit this last one for everybody and then tie a bow on the episode?
I guess the biggest thing that I could, just design with people in mind, design with your audience in mind. I'm definitely, again, I'm a huge design nerd. I love branding and design, new innovative design. So I definitely am not trying to be a stick in the mud about it, but it's just something to keep in mind. I definitely love when everything kind of meshes together nicely, which kind of brings me to the next topic. And this is definitely one that is probably the most common, like, trendy design, and it's that asymmetrical kind of broken grid layout. And this is very much like a Y2K. It's kind of pixely text with these kind of old school graphics. and it might look really cool, but it's definitely not the norm. It's kind of an irregular arrangement of the elements. It might challenge your user's visual expectation of the page. It might be harder for them to locate certain items. Basically, website design principle, there's like a grid principle, and it's to kind of keep the same margins, the same kind of column layout, kind of this golden rule principle, and obviously make sure it looks good on mobile as well. But kind of that broken grid, that asymmetrical, it's a little crazy, wacky, but it's cool if it's done right. But just make sure, can people navigate your site? Can they find what they're looking for? How does it look on a phone?
I like what you just said there again about can people navigate your site. I mentioned that earlier, and I think that's something that applies to a lot of this. And if anybody out there is going through a design or redesign, or just want to, if you're listening to Taylor's ideas and you're like, oh crap, that's me, we've done that on our site, grab some people and, like we're saying, just look over their shoulder or something. There's a bunch of A/B testing stuff you can find online if you just Google it. Actually, that book we talked, Don't Make Me Think, Stephen Krug, he talks a lot about A/B testing and has some great ideas and resources on how to quickly do this stuff. But that's really a great test at the end of the day is, can people navigate your site? And can they find what you're looking for? I'm sorry, can they find what they're looking for? And we've talked about this internally, Taylor. Your website, every page of your website, as a business and then as a designer, you should have an intention on where you want the user to go. Maybe that call to action, like you mentioned, right? Or clicking a phone number, like whatever it is, there should be a very clear purpose for each page. But then there's also these other things that can be found and explored, and challenging people to do those things on your site. Are they looking for the thing and they missed it? They scrolled all the way to the bottom of the page because it wasn't evident, because it's a bad design, like you're saying, right? That should be a red flag, and maybe you need to simplify. But that's, I think, where the rubber can meet the road is, can people use your site, and can they accomplish what you're hoping they can accomplish, or can they find what they're looking for? Kind of those are the two different ways to come at it. And if yes, then you're good. And if not, I'd say play this episode back, listen to Taylor's, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. See which of these 6 might be causing you some problem, and give it another redo. Any other tidbits you want to share with everybody, Taylor, before we wrap it up?
No, just, find the right balance between design and optimization, and you'll create a great user experience for your audience.
That's awesome. I think we should give ourselves a shameless plug, let everybody know. Yes, like we said on the front side, Taylor is part of our team. This is what we do. We don't just do SEO for clients. We do web redesign, branding, brand guidelines, logos, all of that. And if you engage with us on those things, you're going to be engaging with Taylor and her team for this. If you need help in these areas, maybe you just want some consultation, whatever it is, you can reach out to us either through localseotactics.com or intrix.com, which is our web design and SEO firm. And we are happy to help with these topics in addition to talking about them here on the show. And this will not be the last time for everybody listening that Taylor's on. Taylor's going to be coming on talking more about design, UX related things for your website as we move forward in the future, because like we said, this is a big part of SEO, right, at the end of the day. And we need to talk more about it. So yeah, Taylor, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your insights with everybody. Absolutely. Getting introduced to everybody, and I'm looking forward to future episodes as well.
Me too.
All right, with that, we can wrap it up. I hope everybody listening pulled at least 1 or 2 nuggets, probably more, out of this episode. Taylor, thanks again for sharing everything. Everybody listening, you can check this out. Again, if you want to see some of the visuals and examples of what Taylor's talking about, go to localseotactics.com. Find this episode, and you can watch the YouTube video, or just search for us on YouTube, Local SEO Tactics, then you'll find the channel. Thanks again, Taylor. We'll see you again. Everybody listening, catch you on the next episode. Take care.